What more proof do you need? He said it himself. I made a generous offer to reach a resolution, and he turned his nose up at it.
Yep, the only reason we have long strikes is because of bad union leaders.
It was not that simple, though. An offer was made, but Monsieur Beckers and the workers would never have been forced into that position had their working conditions been satisfactory to begin with.
This is outrageous! Do you plan on blaming everyone for doing their jobs? I suppose it makes you feel better about yourself, doesn't it?
Although Monsieur de Silva eventually opened up, he was defensive when we discussed the matters of his blackmail, and that was a private conversation behind closed doors. I cannot imagine he will be forthcoming in front of the other guests. He's going to need some convincing to admit his faults again. So he can be, yeah. Yeah, so do I go direct then? Yeah, if you're simply doing your job and treating your men fairly, there would not be a strike to talk about.
It may be a big deal to you, but I am used to workers not being happy with something. And most of the time, that unhappiness is directed at me. When you're in charge of your own factory, you'll understand. I handle the situation the best I could. If you think otherwise, maybe you have proved us all right, that you aren't the great detective you claim to be.
Because I'm not a businessman? You're willing to pay an anonymous blackmailer that accused you of the same. The desire to hide one's secrets is a powerful force. Anything I claim to be is supported by facts and truth.
I'm the next target, am I? You are certainly not making any friends here, detective. We can all see right through you. Whatever you have to say, we have known each other for years, and it will take more than a young, cocksure detective to waver their support of me.
Monsieur da Silva, you seem to have forgotten our previous conversations.
I recall them just fine, thank you. A police officer trying to manipulate facts to fit his own agenda. Shocking.
Yes, they're normally meant to do it in favor of you. Claims of abuse against your staff and the hiring of a militia. Those are facts that have been twisted to my agenda.
Is that what you plan to do? Accuse us all of something until we feel enough guilt that we agree to allow the girl to walk free?
The events that led to the Major's murder are not as simple as you have tried to convince yourself. I have uncovered what initiated both the murder of your workers and of the Major. It is you that refuses to accept the truth.
Apparently anyone can become a detective now. I really don't know how you gained your title.
Through order and...
Order? There's no order in beating down who you can...
Monsieur da Silva, you have stood steadfast, and your opinion on your involvement has not wavered.
Detective, you would do well not to anger my
This is
friends.
just naff. I'm really not enjoying this.
It was not my intention. I only want those responsible to be held accountable for their actions. The Major's death does not fall on one person alone.
Well, I mean, the Major...
Does your position on Mademoiselle Elizabeth's guilt remain the same?
Even after all your attempts, Detective, Felix was still murdered. Self-defense or not, she chose to hide.
Self-defense, it
Now,
wasn't
she
murder.
knew what she had done was wrong. And she will
If
pay
it was
for it.
self-defense, it wasn't murder.
It was not choice to hide anything, madame. If in her position, I ask, what would you have done? The Major has already furiously thrown an object at you, barely missing your head, and now has hold of your arm.
I wouldn't have driven a knife into him, that I can tell you for sure. She is no fool. She intended to kill, not to defend.
Madame Van den Bosch will be a much greater challenge. I don't care. This just... I enjoy the kind of deduction things. You don't need to do this. If I'm here to sway her into seeing that Mademoiselle Elizabeth had no other option, I'm afraid that it was the Major's actions that drove her to do what she did. Speaking of the guests... Okay. You were the closest to the Major. His violent temper cannot come as a surprise.
quite presumptuous of you to assume violence is in his nature.
I did not say violence, I said anger.
Putting my own feelings towards the Major aside, he was not an honorable man, at least at some time in his life. He must have been for you to allow him in your house for so many
Didn't
years.
say violence, I said anger. I haven't escalated to that question yet.
So, even you confirm he had a history of aggression.
The Major was dishonorably dismissed from the British military. Are you aware of why?
I'm sure that is none of my business. Likewise, it is none of yours.
The Major shot and killed a number of unarmed prisoners as they were bound and terrified, posing no threat. His actions are unforgivable and should not be defended by anyone.
You judge him so harshly, but I return the question. What would you have done in his position? He had made mistakes. I will not deny that. In those moments when a decision had to be made, it fell to him, and he did what he
He was
thought
given direct orders not to do it. And what of the mistreatment you received from the Major? You cannot justify that. Did she receive mistreatment? It's sympathetic. I don't know how she'll respond to it, but I'll go with it. I'm not sure what mistreatment. There we go.
S'il te plaît, madame. I ask that you consider everything you know of the Major carefully.
He was not always like that. The man that I called a friend would never have done what he has. I cannot allow another innocent person to be punished for his vicious and barbarous behavior.
You have seen the Major act in a similar manner as I described before, haven't you? What was the outcome then?
Flawlessly. I was not flawlessly.
You have convinced me that I am wrong, in both my opinion on Elizabeth's punishment and in the friendships I keep. Is that not enough?
Oh wait,
for
so
you?
is it that you can't succeed with De Silva? Then why make me go through the challenge and the puzzle if you can't? I don't... Right, the only way I could have gotten that achievement is if I actually did it flawlessly. So I got everything right. I did everything I could, which means you can't succeed with De Silva, or there's a bug. So I assume you can't, because we've not had any kind of buggy things with like this or achievements. What is going on?
Not when a potential crime has been committed, and I fear an innocent party may have been punished for it.
He was just a boy. I told him to stop, but he was like a wild animal.
The confrontation with Mademoiselle Elizabeth was not the first time he has come close to killing another.
It was following the officers' ball. A young man, no older than 16, stopped us on the street, begging for some change. Felix pushed him away, but he was persistent. He only wanted a few coins. Like a flash, Felix snapped and wouldn't let go of him. He would not stop punching him. I have never seen anything so brutal.
But he was never charged for the attack.
Felix called the captain at the station and said that the boy had tried to rob him, and he was merely defending himself. The boy was thrown behind bars without a second thought. It was a full week before the bruises on Felix's knuckles finally faded.
And even after witnessing such a brutal assault, you still support him. You still believe that he had not attacked Elizabeth.
And that kind of thing would have probably still been going on. The whole, oh, I'll call the captain and kind of use my social position and money to make sure I don't get, punished. And Hercule Poirot is like, oh no, she'll have a fair trial. You're mentioning it. And it flies in the face of a kind of like a previous plot point. Well, not plot point, but something that's said.
The days following, he showed no signs of remorse, no apology to him or to me. I blamed it on the amount he had had to drink. But when you began talking about him finding Elizabeth in his study, I somehow knew it had happened again.
But you've just been acting like you didn't know. Like you were like, oh, that couldn't possibly have happened. Ooh.
Had you been open about the Major's temper, this could all have been avoided. When you tell the courts the truth,
If.
Mademoiselle Elizabeth's self-defense plea cannot be ignored.
Just when I thought I could not see a more spineless move.
Excuse me?
You allowed a bully and thug to remain in your house and endanger your family.
I'm sorry, Margot, but I am struggling to understand why you have involved yourself in this affair.
I'm surprised you can hear me way up there on that high horse of yours.
How dare you speak to me in that way? Who I decide to keep in my house is my decision and no one else's.
I can see that. Murderers, thieves, and extortionists are all acceptable, it seems.
Countess, I have talked at length of the Major's death, but not the reason for my invitation in the first place. When I last gathered you all together, I spoke of a blackmail ring that was rife in the area, and then of the letter that the Major had received. Mademoiselle Angeline requested my help personally after she received such a letter threatening her family name. She felt I was the only one that could uncover the truth. And uncover the truth I have.
Get on with it, detective. Who dared try and extort my family and then have the gall to allow me to welcome them into my home?
If it was not for the honesty of a young servant, I would perhaps still be looking for the
For goodness sake, it was me.
Okay, and that was unexpected.
Margot, how could you?
While it looked as though the Countess was helping the young women at the shelter, she was in fact only finding them positions of employment in wealthy homes to gather information on them and learn secrets that she would ultimately be able to use against them. Monsieur da Silva fell victim to her network of moles and was in turn blackmailed. It was quite the prosperous setup you had, knowing that they would not be prepared to lose their social standing if a secret was to find its way from where it had been hidden for so long.
That cannot be true, Margot. How could you do such a cruel thing?
Money.
That is rich. Coming from
Oh dear.
you.
You are one of my oldest friends.
Florette ended up in the something, probably.
High and mighty Madame van den Bosch. You think you can do what you wish when you wish it and there will be no repercussions. You are as bad as all of them.
If I do not get a straight answer out of you, I will march you to the police station myself.
I'm surprised it took the Major this long to start living with you. He must have been on the edge for some time.
Yeah, Snap, living with you.
How dare you speak to me like that? In my own home.
A home you share with the father of your daughter for so many years, and she still remains none the wiser.
You have no right.
Maman,
Uh-oh.
Angeline? Have you heard what she has admitted to? She is merely trying to make herself...
Is what she says true? Felix, he was my father? That is the secret that the letter was talking about, isn't it? You told me that we had nothing to hide. Detective Poirot, were you aware of this?
Oui, mademoiselle. But it was not my place to repeat.
I don't understand. What about father?
your maman betrayed the love of a good, honest man and played away behind his back and then kept it hidden for all these years like a lady of the night with her client list.
You will say no more. Angeline, I...
Did Felix know?
This is not an appropriate conversation.
He knew, dear girl. He knew the whole time. It is only dear Edwin that was blind to their
Also, Angeline.
You will not talk of him like that. You will not talk of him at all.
If I don't, who will? You never deserved him. You don't even deserve the memory of him.
Countess, there is something that you still have not explained.
What more is there for her to say?
How long were you in love with the Viscount for?
Margot? Is that true?
We were destined to be together. And then you turned up. And I was all but forgotten about.
But you were nothing more than friends.
And you made sure of that, didn't you? From the day you arrived, it was all about what you wanted and what you had to do to get it. You didn't consider Edwin at all. He was just a purse to you.
I loved my husband, and I miss him every day.
Loved him enough to stray?
Both of you, no more.
Please, Angèle, let me explain.
Maman, I do not wish to hear anything else from you.
Not even your own daughter wants to hear your lies anymore. Cassandra van den Bosch, all alone.
How dare you!
I agree, Poirot.
While I feel a sense of satisfaction and pride in solving both cases, there is still a part of me that is reluctant to revel in triumph. I am content with the unmasking of Comtesse de Vos as the blackmailer, and knowing that she will pay for her crimes. But it is the justice for Mademoiselle Elizabeth that worries
So we
me.
jump ahead.
She will stand in a court of law, and I can only hope that they can see she acted in self-defense. I must trust that our legal system and justice will prevail,
So we
and a fair sentencing will be
jump
given.
ahead, and
In protecting her own life, she took the life of another. Perhaps the guilt she must live with is a greater punishment than any sentence she can receive.
so we jump ahead to a courtroom scene where she's acquitted or something.